This story dominates the headlines. The outcome of Everton Nottingham Forest and what went on within the 90 minutes. Now, of course, we know that Everton won the game, but as I said in the introduction this morning, with a push of a button of Nottingham Forest seemingly alleged bias and corruption within the PGMOL. What happened in this game that so annoys Forest? Well, Forest felt they had 3 penalty claims centred on incidents involving Everton's Ashley Young, and not one penalty kick was given. At the end of the match, Forest wrote on social media, 3 extremely poor decisions, 3 penalties not given, which we simply cannot accept. So we warned the PGMOL that the VAR is a Luton fan before the game, but they didn't change him. Our patience has been tested multiple times. Nottingham Forest will now consider its options. We've got a bit more information on this, and I'll bring you that in a second. But this was Nuno, Forest manager, post-match.
I was aware of that complaint. It's a formal complaint. Every club is entitled to do it if they feel that they are not comfortable. The PGMO decide the other way. If Stuart Attwell is not a fan of Luton, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter in the end of the day. That doesn't matter. He's there to do his job. In starting with Anthony Taylor today, he did a bad job. And VAR did a bad job because the decisions are bad. I'm telling you, after we lose a game, everybody will say, okay, look at the manager, look, he's getting excuses. No, it's not an excuse, it's the reality.
So let's just re-examine just part of that Forest statement again. We warned the PGMOL, this was before the match, that the VAR is a Luton fan, but they didn't change him. So this morning on this show, it's our understanding that before Everton against Forest, Mark Clattenburg, of course, the referee official who works now for Nottingham Forest, on behalf of Forest, was in touch with the PGMOL and Howard Webb regarding Attwell being on VAR duty. There was a discussion around Stuart Attwell being a Luton fan. And remember, this is pre-match. But, and this is vitally important, Clattenburg and Forest did not ask for Attwell to be removed from the fixture, and they had no issue at the time. Simon, what do you make of that? That was all pre-match, no issue at the time. The game's played, and then Forest come out with their statement and all the grievances.
Well, I think the most sensible voice that I've heard is probably Nuno Espirito Santo and his observations about the competency of the performance rather than the integrity of the individual's concerns. I think Mark Clattenburg is a mixer. I think he's creating, rather than managing the situation and doing things in a certain way, I think he's perhaps behaving in a way that's not becoming of the position that he should be in. But that's just a personal view on the fact that I don't think he's adding any value to the equation and maybe creating opportunities for himself. If I'm Stuart Attwell, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, in any other walk of life, I'd be able to sue somebody for these observations because it's defamation of character. It's questioning someone's integrity, their morality, the way in which they operate. And I think football needs to be very careful. I mean, I note Peter Walton's piece in the Times about the fact they need to call a general meeting about the standards and conduct. Don't be so bloody stupid. It's Nottingham Forest that need to be dealt with, not every other football club in the Premier League. So don't be so bloody ridiculous. They need to be put in their place. I understand their frustrations. Without emotion, football is nothing. So you have these outbursts, you have these rants. We have them on air. Football people will have them on after a game because it goes with the territory. But Nottingham Forest, unfortunately, irrespective of whether they have validity and the competency of the decisions, have stepped over a line, and metaphorically they need to be smacked.
And you think Attwell, should he wish to pursue it, has got a legal case against Forest?
I think it would be very difficult in any other walk of life to suggest that's not defamation. You're questioning someone's integrity. And when you do that, certainly in a professional setting, you are bringing into play the issues that I've just alluded to. And that in any other walk of life would be something that people would consider suing under. And football and the framework of football seems to allow this.
Yeah.
It seems to allow people to say whatever they want to say and there's no consequence for it. And eventually, not that I'm advocating for this, because the last thing I want is any more legal ramifications in football, but the reality of it is you can't just say stuff like this. You cannot question the integrity or the morality of someone's intentions. You can question their competency. That's fair enough. Bad decision. Nuno Espirito Santo said it. He said it's nothing to do with the fact who he may or may not support. It's to do with a bad decision-making process.
Forest Simon said they'll consider their options. What are they?
None. Shut up. None. You had your owner on the side of the pitch the other day. Certain people were getting a bit carried away, and I would have thought that it would have been more sensible for Clattenburg to be managing this better rather than appearing to stoke it up, and one can question his motivations for that. I don't know.
What do you think, Graham, is going to come Forest's way, and what do you think of the fact that
their options are, Jim, to go and get the very best lawyer they can find? Because I think the authorities will go after them. Can't say that. Our game is not corrupt, and to suggest that is totally wrong. I think the manager has handled himself brilliantly in this. I mean, I've been a manager, and I know how frustrating it can be if you feel you're on the wrong end of decisions. I mean, the 3 decisions are all penalties.
You think they were?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just a referee. The people operating the VAR have got it wrong as well, and that's alarming. That is alarming. And I think, forget opinions on this. What we think. Who's it? Ashley?
Ashley Young, yeah.
Ashley Young. Did you see his interview afterwards? It tells you everything you need to know about those 3 penalty calls.
It was interesting.
They were 3 penalties.
Danny Murphy's analysis of it last night on Match of the Day 2, when he was talking about the standing foot being planted, meant that the first was not a penalty because ultimately he threw himself to the ground. The second one is a debatable one because of the handball rule and the interpretations of it. But the third one he felt was absolutely stonewall because the referee made a decision, and the wrong decision. The referee indicated to the cameras that the player, Ashley Young, had got the ball. And so he needed to be corrected because VAR could have intervened and said, no, you've got it wrong. They didn't get the ball. So that then puts everything, you have to go to the monitor. So that's where Danny had gone with it.
He only thinks
he
one
thinks
of them
the third one was, and I think Phil Jagielka was in the same sort of space, judging by what they were saying last night.
Who did he play for again?
Well, now you're alleging something there.
You see, there's a message coming in. Please remind Forest this morning they're only in the Premier League because of 2 obvious penalties that weren't given against them in the playoff final. No. There's Dean, who I think is a Forest fan. I'm embarrassed as a former Forest fan. He says he's a former Forest fan. I'm disgusted. I think he's talking about his own club and the actions they've taken. The thing is, Simon, Clattenburg in the Mail talks about what happened. And he says, you'll have seen the statement released by the club, how the PGMOL were contacted to warn that it wasn't appropriate for a Luton fan such as Attwell to play such a pivotal role in a massive match. I wouldn't have risked this situation if I were the head of the referees, and all of this could have been avoided had the PGMOL simply made smarter appointments. But it's our information that Clattenburg and Forest didn't ask for Attwell to be removed from the fixture, and they had no issue at the time. That was their time to put out their statement pre-match and not post.
It'll be interesting to see what their response is to that, because our information, I would imagine, has been gotten from one side of the argument and theirs is from another. So I would suggest that they'll be interesting to see. But that's why I make the point about where Clattenburg is. And I'm not interested in focusing on Clattenburg. He has his own agendas to serve out and his own battles with perhaps certain individuals within the confines of
his being at Forest.
And that's my point, Gray. The reality of it is adding value and creating opportunity, because I would have felt that the management of Nottingham Forest's reaction and also their complex they've built over the season about unfair decisions alongside Wolverhampton Wanderers would be better served by him being pragmatic, not stirring the fires, not inciting the flames. And our information has solidity to it, and there's no reason to think it hasn't, then that compromises completely Nottingham Forest's position, doesn't it? Beyond already a compromised position.
What is Mark Clattenburg's role at Forest?
Referee analyst.
Right. So he makes the call to the PGMOL.
Yeah.
Howard Webb, would he have spoken to him?
Presumably Howard Webb would, yes.
So the PGMOL
pre-match
are saying that pre-match he didn't make any demands, he didn't ask for anything. What was the point of his conversation?
Exactly.
I'll tell you what it was. It was plant a seed. We were getting treated badly. He was hoping someone, whoever he spoke to, whether it's Howard Webb or anyone, whatever story he would relate to the referee on the day or the VAR at the day, he was looking to plant a seed. Mark Clattenburg was there. He was trying to plant a seed.
Well, with a push of a button, when they put out their statement, Nottingham Forest will now consider its options. What have they done with the push of that button? Have Nottingham Forest seemingly alleged bias and corruption within the PGMOL? And as Simon has suggested, has Attwell, said to be a Luton fan, got a legal case himself?
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.